Best Code Editor for Newbies in 2020. Today's topic on the RealToughCandy live stream. How's everyone doing? I'm just asking. How are you doing? How is your weekend? How is your Monday? How is your life? Another day in quarantine at RealToughCandy headquarters at the HQ, but that's not stopping me from doing these videos, these live streams, hanging out with the peeps and talking about software development, web development, coding, the lifestyle, the jobs, all of it. Hope you're doing well on this lovely, lovely April day. My name's RTC. We're doing one of these, or at least trying to. I did take a day off on Sunday. One of these a day until we hashtag flatten the curve. May have a few weeks more, may have a few months, may have a few days. I don't know. But these are really fun. If you haven't yet participated in the live chat, you're missing out on half the fun. So many fun folks tuning into these things. Now, a few announcements, and then we're going to get into the topic. I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but these all are worth mentioning. If you did not see the live stream yesterday with Donovan, I highly encourage you to watch it. He's a 100% self-taught web developer. His story is so motivating. It's so insightful. He has a lot of experience in different tech stacks and different educational components. He does a lot of volunteering with Code Newbies. He knows a lot of stuff. And if you're interested in hearing more from a person who is in the industry, who is working right now, check out that interview. Timestamps in the description box, as well as the comment section. We talked for about an hour. Him and I had a dialogue, and then we took some audience questions. Definitely don't miss it. If you did have a question there and I didn't get to it, I apologize. We did run out of time. Something I did mean to mention, though, with that stream and any of my live streams, if you have a question or a comment or need to otherwise get your message through to me, send me a super chat. That's the only way I am guaranteed to see it, because YouTube pops up a special box. It's like, RTC, read this. So otherwise, I get so many questions and comments. I just cannot respond to them all, unfortunately. I'd love to, but I just get a lot. So that option is there if you need to. And also, if Ben Riley is here, someone let me know, because he bombed me with a super chat the other week, and we ended the stream and I didn't get to him. But I still have that question I want to answer for him. So if you see Ben, holla. Announcement number 2-ish, 2.5-ish. Shout out to Andrew. He recently upped his pledge on patreon.com/RealToughCandy. He is now in the zone with a whole bevy of rewards. My tiers are pretty decent. So if you're thinking about taking the plunge, check that out. Paradoodly-doo is at least one mod today in the chat. I haven't even checked who all else is here. But Paradoodly, can you pop that link for Patreon to show the folks what is available to them on the various tiers? We also have GTD. One of the benefits on one of my tiers is that you get to pick a topic, and that topic is prioritized. So his topic, we're doing a live stream on tomorrow. Just another perk of being a financial supporter of the RealToughCandy Network. I appreciate you all. You make these videos possible. That said, let's do a roll call and talk about today's topic. Best Code Editor for Newbies 2020. Hello, everyone. Sean, Janos, Hassan, Vlaslo. I vote Google Docs. Vlaslo, I like it. I should have put that on an option in the poll. Daryl, how's it going? Donovan, the guy himself, the star of yesterday's live stream, Donovan, is here. He's also a YouTube channel member. He's been on the channel for like 3 years. Shout out to Donovan. Pedro, what is up? Thanks, Paradoodly, for popping those links. That is all. Okay, so here's what happened. Currently, this is how this poll happened, right? I am a fan of learning how people learn and discovering people's processes, especially when it comes to self-taught developers. And right now, my good friend and mod extraordinaire Paradoodly-doo is learning how to code. She's on her first month. I think this is like week 4 or 5 coming into this week, learning how to code. And so I've been talking to her about her process and how she's learning. What are some of her stumbling points? What does she even learn? What is she using? What are her tools of the trade? And I wanted to reach out to more people and ask you guys, what's a good code editor for newbies? Because right now, a paradoodly-doo right now is rocking the brackets. And as you can see down here, I have a bevy of IDEs and code editors. We're going to get to all of these actually. We're going to take a little test drive for each of these, or at least look at the interface. We're not going to get too crazy with these, to be honest. We're just going to probably look at the interface and compare some of the options and stuff. PhpStorm, brackets, Atom, VSCode, Sublime. We have Vim. We're going to take a look at Vim. A few people recommended that for the first code editor for newbies. And I just love the perspectives on this. So I threw out this poll the other day, right? And here are the results. Now, one poll I had on RealToughCandy YouTube, one poll I had on Twitter. We had 109 votes here. This is the final tally. And then this is ongoing. So this was I did this one 2 days ago. So you guys are ready for like, okay, what did people say, right? On YouTube, we had of 800 respondents. This was a crazy active poll. There was lots of engagement on this. 10% of people said Sublime. A whopping 77% of people said Visual Studio Code. The overwhelming majority, VS Code. 5% said Atom, 4% said brackets, and 3% said something else. Now, to compare with the Twitter results, I have a far less engagement on Twitter consistently. I'm convinced most of these people following me are like thought bots. I don't know. There are some real people who do follow this account, but for the most part, it's just like, it's just, I don't trust it. I don't trust it. I think there's probably like 20 people who are actually real people following this account. But anyway, best code editor for newbies on Twitter. Got 109 votes. This ended on the 19th. 11%. I mean, this is kind of just almost, well, I don't want to say uncanny, but just to point out the consistency here. We're both hitting 70% in each of these platforms for VS Code. Okay, so Sublime 11%, VS Code 70%, Atom 13%, almost 14% on Twitter, and then 4.6% said brackets. I got 2 people adding their comments here. Popinski, Notepad, because I'm just nasty. I won't argue that. Ashish says VS Code with brackets, UI extension. I like where Ashish is going with that. Now remember, this poll is for newbies. Newbies! So I'm curious if that changes a lot of people's answer. If I would have said just best code editor question mark, would that have changed a lot of people's response? I don't know. So let's go to the comments here. I won't go through all of these, but there are some, just a diverse selection of people commenting here. Ritwick says, I think new developers should always not use Emmet. Otherwise, they cannot truly learn a language. VS Code is best, but it should be used when someone has proper understanding of basic syntax. And what he means by Emmet is, let me pop one of these open. Let me pop open Atom. A lot of people, I named this project Make React Stop. Make it stop! Yeah, so I'm just going to delete this. And just to go back to Atom, Atom was all the rage like 4 years ago. People drop editors and IDEs like, I don't even know what. Atom, you hardly hear anyone talk about it. I still use it pretty frequently. My IDE, my IDE go-to is PhpStorm. And just a spoiler alert, if you are working with PHP on a for-profit basis or otherwise working with PHP a whole lot, do yourself a favor and check out PhpStorm. That's a JetBrains product. I friggin' love JetBrains. All their editors are just brilliant. And PhpStorm, actually, if you are a member of the Student GitHub Pack or GitHub Student Pack, JetBrains is offering free use of all their IDEs. They have WebStorm for general web development. But my PHP developers should do yourselves a favor. There's the 30-day free trial if you don't want to. This is a paid product. But once you're doing stuff for profit, like, it just makes it so much more worth it. The efficiency is just absolutely incomparable. But going back to Atom, right? We're talking about Emmet. So Emmet is what we call a package. It's essentially an add-on to the basic editor. And with something like Atom, you can make it a simple code editor where you just, typing it out, saving it as a JavaScript file, whatever. But then you can add on these packages to transform it into an IDE. And what I mean by IDE, that stands for Integrated Development Environment. And when you integrated development environment means you're bringing tools to your editor. So stuff like debugging, stuff like testing, stuff like, I don't know, there's all kinds, there's different, everything you see here, stuff with React, these various add-ons. And Emmet is one of those add-ons. And what it lets you do is write code really fast, especially when it comes to boilerplate. So let's say I'm creating an HTML file, right? And we got to write the head, we got to write the UTF, we got to do all that crap. No, we don't. Wait a minute. Come on, don't do this to me. No, we don't. I just hit exclamation point and then I hit tab. And look at that. Can you guys see this? That saved me a lot of freaking time. And as this guy pointed out, new developers should always not use Emmet. And that's an interesting point to debate because although this is boilerplate and we need to start all of our HTML files with these basics, sometimes a little bit more, but this is the bare bones basics of what we need to start with an HTML file. There is a point early on where you're like, okay, I get it. Let me just hit the exclamation point, hit tab, and I can get to actually coding. But it is important to, I don't think you need to have a scientific understanding of what metachar sets of UTF-8. Now, sometimes that is going to come in handy when you're debugging something, but for the most part, that stuff's just, it's kind of a side note. I think you should have the basic understanding of what this kind of stuff does, but as far as like pro expert on meta names, I don't think that's necessary. So using Emmet early on, I agree with this person, is probably not a good idea, but eventually it really comes in so freaking handy. Love it. Daryl LaRue says, start with VS Code. Main Street Studio says, I started with Atom, which I had CSS problems with, then brackets, then VS Code. Brackets is a good way to start because its UI is simple and easy to understand. Remember, you're new. VS Code is a bit complicated if you have less knowledge about coding. I agree with this statement as well. I think brackets is a great starter code editor. I don't know if you'd consider it an IDE. I don't know if it has the tools because I don't use it all that often. So I don't know its stat. I don't know how robust it is. It does have a debugger here. So maybe it is. Maybe it is an IDE. But if you go to File, the thing I like about brackets is that you can live preview and there's not a lot of stuff right away that pops out to you as a newbie. So you open the page. This is the first sample page that it threw at me. So I go to brackets or File, live preview, and it's going to open a Google window for me. And then I go like this. If I go, what if I said Google, getting started with Google Rackets? Does this hot reload? Okay, so I could just refresh it, right? Getting started with Rackets. I like how it's like, there's just not a lot of stuff throwing itself at you in brackets as a new user. This cannot be said with VS Code. There is so much crap on VS Code. Listen, it's powerful, it's free, it does a lot of this stuff really well, but there's just so much stuff. I don't think VS Code, I'm going against the popular opinion here. I do not think VS Code is good for beginners. I think it's actually pretty turn off-ish. There's too much stuff here. Let's go back to the comments. Someone said, Code Stacker said, why start with anything other than the best? VS Code. VS Code. This is the funny thing about VS Code. Next year or 2 years from now, people are going to find something else. Clockwork says, you can't go wrong with any of these editors, to be honest. I voted for VS Code simply because most YouTubers and Udemy courses seem to use it the most. Yep. And for someone just starting in code, it's best they work with an IDE that most instructors are using. Clockworks. This is an excellent, is this Carlos? I think Clockworks is Carlos. Hi Carlos. He was on the interview, or the junior developer mock interviews we did with Lucen a couple weeks back. That was a great video too. That video should have 100,000 views in my humble opinion. 2 real-world junior developers did a mock technical interview, live coding with the world to see. It was really cool. It was fun. It was so awesome. So go check that video out. Paradoodly-doo. I'm going to put you on YouTube fetch mode. Could you please pop that video in the comments or in the live chat? But to get back to the point, I totally agree with what Clockworks is saying here. You can't go wrong with them. I agree with him. I totally agree with him on this comment. Most YouTubers and Udemy courses seem to use it the most. And if you are using Udemy courses and you are watching these code alongs, then this is the use case where it would be good to use as a newbie. But if you're doing things on your own, trying to navigate this, I think a lot of people are going to be setting themselves up for some disappointment, or at least some frustration. I could be wrong. I actually want to hear from some code newbies out there. I know we have a lot of code newbies on the channel. If you're in your first couple months of coding, what do you think of VS Code compared to some of these other lighter code editors or lighter IDEs? So I probably just sounded contradictory right here because I'm like, yes, I totally endorse what Clockworks is saying about VS Code. But I think it is, if that's what you're being fed by the YouTubers and the Udemy instructors, then I think you should follow suit. But if you find that it's too much, check out something a little lighter. Check out something like Brackets. Sublime is awesome. I'm on Sublime 2. I think Sublime 3. I don't know why I didn't upgrade to Sublime 3. I think it was giving me problems or something, or I just didn't like it. Maybe there's just too much. I forget. But for some, I know I intentionally stuck with Sublime Text 2. Sublime Text 2 is so fast. And this is this has always been a go-to since day one of my coding journey. If I need something done fast and quick and I don't need to debug, I just need to whip up some code. If I'm doing like a prototype, if I'm doing some training, or I'm just experimenting, it fires up so fast. It's not loading all these freaking packages. It's not loading a built-in command line. It's just the page, and it's just color. It's just, what do they call it? It's just syntax highlighting. So fast. Now, granted, you can go to some of these IDEs and make them real just sparse and just run them right on like bare metal, if you will, without the add-ons and stuff. But just Sublime, there's something just like silky about it. And I shouldn't have to go to an IDE and just like uninstall, 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 uninstall. When you go to something like VS Code, all this stuff is already built in. And in one sense, it's really nice because it's a complete package. But from the newbie perspective, there's a lot of stuff going on. Is this the cyberpunk theme? I might have done this to myself. There is no way I can productively code with this theme. I just think it looks really cool. Let's go back to what other people are saying here. Rishu is one of a few people who mentioned Vim. Let's talk about Vim. Let's talk about Vim. Marx says Vim is the best. Think about it. When you start learning, your mind is still fresh. Might as well start with Vim, so by the end, you'll find that all the other code editors are a piece of cake. I find this comment, and others like it, compelling. Personally, Vim is not something I would, and in the spirit of Vi and Vim, let's whip up my old school, let's break this out, my retro terminal. Vim is super efficient, right? It's super sparse. There's no packages, there's no add-ons, there's nothing. The mere act of exiting Vim will have you scratching your head. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you Vim. Now, let's start typing. Okay, let's say I want to quit. Oh, I hit escape and now it's going back. Escape, escape, escape. What? Oh, I have to hit colon? And then what? And then what do I do? I have to hit quit? Is it exclamation? Oh my God. That is the mere act of exiting Vim. Colon, Q, exclamation point. Yeah. That's your first introduction to Vim. And some people say you can learn it in a few days, or like, oh, it's just a common misconception that Vim's hard. No, dude. Vim is its own skill. Vim is a skill. Vim is like learning Git. Okay? This is its own bag. Whereas with something like brackets, you can get up and going, you can read the quick start and be good to go. Vim is going to take you weeks, probably months, to get a firm grasp on it. But I really appreciate this counterpoint, because like, if you can do Vim, you can do all of these without any problem. And probably you're going to be quite annoyed at the lag or the extra functionalities of these things, like, or the mere reality of the graphical user interface. Give me Vim. Some people swear by Vim and Vi, but for this video, Vim. There is not one newbie I know I would recommend Vim to. If you're like a prodigy, then maybe. If you're a natural computer science and you have just like, this stuff comes so easy to you, then maybe I'd say learn Vim. But in my experience, when you're a self-taught web developer, there are a lot of things already where you're getting that negative feedback. There's a lot of frustration, especially when your code breaks or something's not working, or you're using Linux and something breaks on Linux, and we're conditioned to become upset when these things are actually bugs. But unfortunately, we can get really upset and not perceive these as just problems to solve. And so that can turn a lot of people off when it comes to learning how to code. Remember, these are code newbies. These are freshly hatched code newbies. They need TLC. They need to be introduced, not slammed into the world of web development. Introduced. Vim can come later, IMHO. I want to hear what people are saying in the live stream. Let's go to the chat. Yana says Vim is iconic. Tomas says Vim is excellent if eventually you want to move to Linux servers with no GUI environment. Agreed. GTD says Vim is kind of old school for the sake of being old school. I see that a lot too. Yeah, Vim is for the coding gods, says Carlos. Yeah, exactly. This is more... I see this more as like almost like a hazing ritual or something. It's fun. It's almost like, to me, I know this is going to tick some people off, but to me, Vim and Vi, they're novelties. And eventually, as software developers, as web developers, we're going to need something a little more integrated, especially if we're working with specific languages. But definitely check it out. If you have a terminal, if you're on Linux or Mac right now, just open up your terminal. You can type Vim, you can type Vi, VimV, whatever you want to call it, and it'll pop open. See if I type Vi. But yeah, kind of a fun thing. Let's go back to these comments. Stoneby says, Stoneby, this comment is so right on. Vim is so that people can just argue with Emacs. It's true. Vishal says, what do you use? I use PHP for my for-profit work. I also use Sublime if I just need something I use different editors for different purposes. PHP is for my for-profit PHP. I use Sublime for samples or prototypes. And those are pretty much it. I also have used PhpStorm in the past for some for-profit work. But yeah, let's go back to the comments. Why is the best, Moshi says, why is the best IDE not mentioned here, PhpStorm? That is another JetBrains product. PhpStorm is one of them too. Guys, like I said, if you are a GitHub, part of that GitHub student pack, that's like $1,000 value right there. Plus, like, these editors are not cheap. They're not super expensive. They're like, I think this is like $100 a year, PhpStorm, for the license. For the time it saves me, I'd pay 10 times that, honestly. But if you were part of that GitHub student pack, check out JetBrains. You won't regret it. There's PyCharm. There's IntelliJ. I think is that right for Java? That could be wrong with that. PhpStorm, PhpStorm for JavaScript and other web development. They're wonderful. They're great. They're well engineered. Chris S., another vote for Vim. Tara G says, great question. Here is a comment from a code newbie. I'm a coding beginner. I have used Atom a year ago and recently learned and briefly used Visual Studio Code. I need to practice a lot more with code editors to get familiar. This is a great comment. And that's something too, I know I forget too, because once you just learn something and you do it every day, it's non-cerebral and you don't think about it. But for people who have never used this stuff, all of this stuff is a skill. All of this stuff is getting used to that environment. Even something like brackets, even though I think brackets is a good choice for newbies, still a lot of stuff going on in here. How do you use this debugger? Show developer tools, this navigate. Okay, that's not so complicated, but something like themes. Now, mercifully, you get two choices. This is, again, there's almost like that analysis by paralysis feeling I get with something like VSCode, because there are hundreds of themes. There are hundreds of Emmet ripoffs or Emmet variations. I mean, there are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of options at your disposal. And because there's no path. And with brackets, thank God, okay, brackets dark, brackets light, take your pick. Font size and font family, that's all you get for the basic version of this editor. But other stuff like this, I guess some of this stuff is kind of self-explanatory. But stuff like extract to variable, extract to function, wrap and try catch. To use a lot of this stuff, maybe that's more of my point, to use a lot of this stuff, you also need to know how to code in certain coding paradigms, certain coding languages, certain just general practices with coding and programming fundamentals. If you don't know if you don't know programming language, but you still want to try and, try your hand at HTML and stuff, these kinds of things are just going to confuse you. Like wrap and try catch. If you haven't been exposed to try catch blocks or haven't studied a de facto programming language, none of this stuff is going to make sense. So that Tara is right. Like you do have to learn these things, even the simple ones, or quote unquote simple. I think Sublime out of the box is perhaps the simplest one of all of these. Maybe brackets. I've spent a lot more time with Sublime and working with it than brackets. But there's a lot of functions that newbies can use in this one too. Whoa. Lots of syntax highlighting. This is a really cool option that Sublime offers. That's the one thing I think I have an attachment to Sublime too, because it was one of the ones I started with as I was learning to code, and the syntax of highlighting absolutely blew my mind. Like, the functions turn a color, and so do the parameters. Oh my gosh, it was just so cool. I felt like a total baddie, just like a bad mamba jamba working with syntax highlighting, because it started looking real. And I think I can't emphasize it enough. These little positive feedback moments that we get as code newbies, and even in our journey throughout, sometimes it does get to be a little too depressing with all the things that aren't running, even though these are problems to solve, not life stoppers. These little positive things make coding fun, and they make us want to just continue on with it. So something as simple and as almost childlike as syntax highlighting, even though it does serve a really good purpose, it really helps us parse code a lot more efficiently as humans. It just looks nice. Let's go to these comments and see what people are saying. Tomas, how's it going? Hafiz, what's up? Does code editor really matter except for ease of use for the user? I'm still learning and I've just used VS Code for it. That's a great question. Does code editor really matter except for ease of use for the user? I mean, ultimately, no, it doesn't matter. Although I will say a lot of it depends on your project needs. So what I mean by that is sometimes we have to put our degree of feeling comfortable with the code editor on the back burner and go use one we're not quite comfortable with because it does offer the project. It's a better fit for the project. So how can I illustrate that? I'll just say for the most part, I think that's a right-on statement. But some IDEs are built for certain languages, and they just offer. That's a tough question to answer because it all comes back to the user, right? Well, because I'm thinking from the sense of a project, but you're working with the project, and it's all about making your life easier. So maybe I should just rewind and say, no, I don't think there's anything else that matters except for how easy it makes your life. Great question. I had to think about that one. Daryl says, what's up, Daryl? It's his first live, and you're absolutely correct. Small wins are what I live for. Right. Thanks for adding to that and confirming my suspicion. We've all had that moment when our code isn't working, and most of us have had nights where we are troubleshooting and trying to debug the dumbest problem on the face of the planet, and we could be doing 100 other things, right? Like 100 other important things. And this problem goes to the next day, and it's day 3, and you just want to give up and say, "What? This time sink is absolutely out of control," and then it works. And then you hear the heavenly music, and your eyes start swirling, and you find yourself going, "Yes, it worked." And in that half second, those 3 days of debugging was almost worth it. And it actually was worth it. In that half second, it was all worth it. Now, in retrospect, if you might question yourself, was that really worth it? But at that moment, it is totally worth it. And those are the moments that make you continue on. Loss after loss, the unresolved problem after unresolved problem as a beginner turned so many people off to web development and software development as self-taught people. And it's those little wins that they keep us going. Sarah, what's up, Sarah? Sarah O. Sarah says, I'm late, got sidetracked updating PC. I feel you on that. GTD says, in major projects and large code bases, you need optimal tooling, whereas text editors just cannot perform at the same level of functionality as an IDE. Excellent point. When you're in enterprise web development, Sublime text is probably not going to cut it. We need something like PhpStorm if you're working on a PHP enterprise type project. You don't necessarily have to pay for the editors. I just find that, again, not to plug JetBrains, more than necessary, but they've always came through when it was a for-profit project or when I was working on a larger code base. My go-tos were the family of JetBrains products. Something like Atom, maybe. But Atom, that's the problem with these open source editors is that you're going to run into a bug. With the proprietary ones, this annual subscription ones, you just get that level. Plus, you can get some customer support. Whereas with something like Atom or VSCode, you may or may not be able to get some help in a forum or on Discord or something. So GTD does bring up a good point with that. What's going on? StatsBoss says the John Smiglio with CHTML and CSS course on Udemy that's sponsored by Free Code Camp. is 57 hours of HTML and CSS content that uses VS Code perfectly for beginners. He starts the course showing VS Code tips. Okay, great. Thanks for adding that. Jonas K says, syntax highlights are a major milestone. Tell me about it. If anyone has worked with, has anyone ever met someone who is like, Vlaslo at the opening of this stream made a joke about using Google Docs to code. And there are some hardcore coders, I don't even know if they're in the industry. Every person I've met who suggests something like Notepad to code is routinely unemployed. But there are people out there who are really good coders who just can't keep a job. So take that however you will, but just know you are going to come across people who are like, yes, sparse. You're going to come across people who believe that something like syntax highlighting is cheating, or that it's not for real coders. I worked on I worked on multiple enterprise code bases at my first enterprise job. The former developer there, and this is I heard this from my senior developer. This person did not believe in frameworks because it was the mark of an amateur. So we were dealing with literally million-line code bases with no front-end framework. Now, maybe in 1996 you could get away with that. In the 21st, in this day and age, you cannot. So when people say those sorts of things, be careful. Just try and probe them and try to see where their mindset is, because syntax highlighting is not cheating. It makes our lives easier, and our job is to problem solve. And if we can solve a problem without having to think about it, all the better. It means we can go on to the next problem. So these types of things are very interesting to me from a human interest standpoint. GTD says Notepad, ultra hardcore. Yes. There are lots of coders out there. Fortunately, I mean, they're not en masse. There isn't going to be like a million man march on Washington D.C. like demanding we all use Notepad to code. But we have some people out there who do believe that. Best way to avoid that kind of belief, don't read the YouTube comments. Burke says go with WebStorm. Yeah, it's not a code editor, but the ease of refactoring, its Git integration and search features are much better than VS Code. These things matter when you start to work on big projects where you need to analyze and modify other people's code. It's really resource hungry, though, I must say. So Burke is kind of echoing on what GTD added about upgrading to the IDEs. Language-specific IDEs. I've used many good ones, and so have many other people in the chat and people who are subscribed to this channel, etc. There are numerous choices out there. Fiderai says Emacs, Glenn, JetBrain, Alden, Vim. Alden also says Notepad++. There was someone in my Discord the other day who was like, my instructor recommended we use Notepad++. What should I do? Or I don't know if they're looking for guidance on the Notepad++ something, but they were looking for coding help and mentioned their instructor had told them to download Notepad++. At one point, I mean, that was one of our earlier options, but unless the tutorial was from like a decade ago, you really don't see much Notepad++ love. Yeah, this person, Popinski, Notepad. VS Code. Has anyone used VS Code with Brackets UI extension? Is that something my radar should be zooming around right now for possible research purposes? Let's go back to these comments. John B, what's up? Notepad++ for quick edits. Stone B says, anyone ever use Carrot if you're on a Chromebook? John B says, Colt Steele has his VS Code extension set up on his YouTube channel. Dan says, what about code auto-completion? Yeah, what's your specific question about that, Dan? We kind of talked about that earlier about Emmet and code completion. Danielle Bloom, nice of you to join us. What is up? Happy Monday. GTD also endorsing Notepad++ as a good utility for quick edits, like John B said. Yeah, I don't have Notepad++ on this machine. I did at one time. But Sublime is my go-to for quick edits. and quick, just like, just the load time is unbelievably just instant. When it's not asking me to donate, there's a really funny meme in the RTC Discord about, I think Sarah posted it, she found it somewhere, and it's so funny. By the way, I didn't do my merch spiel, but I did it all for the JavaScript mugs, shirts, hoodies. Oh, baby, we got the hoodies. We did it all for the hoodies. I even have a huge sticker. Hold on. Stand by. Nice, thick, square sticker. This is one of many designs on CandyScript. That is my Teespring store. Paradoodly-doo, be a doll. And share that Teespring link. If anyone has gotten their stimulus bucks in this country and you're looking for a way to blow some money, that store has leotards. Just saying. And socks. Going back to the comments here. Thanks everybody for tuning in, by the way. If you are enjoying today's stream or have nothing against this channel, please pop a like. Please pop a like. Please hit that like button so we can continue to offer quality, dev-centric material on this channel. This is a channel where we talk about software development. There is a focus on web development because that is where everything is going. Not desktop, not offline, maybe in a few years, but right now it's the web. Not iOS apps. Although we do have some iOS developers on this channel, so welcome to you. But the focus is software development and web development, and it will probably always be that. It's always going to be related to software. The implementation may vary depending on my mood and depending on what you guys want to see, but that's what we do here. That is what we do, and I'm so glad so many people have found this channel. If you're new, I want to thank you for stopping by. And if you're an old schooler, I want to thank you for sticking around this long. Shout out Chiquito. Shout out to my old schoolers. Sammy Turner is here. What is up? We had a very robust conversation in the I was more reading it than participating, kind of talking about Murder, She Wrote and quality 80s murder mysteries on the Discord last night. And Sammy made the adroit observation that Jessica Fletcher suffers from Munchausen syndrome. There are a lot of flying rumors about our dear Jessica Fletcher. I dare not partake in sharing my opinions on who she really is. KGB spy or innocent woman in her late 50s, early 60s. I don't know. The rumors do fly, though. Yano says, I got my hoodie. Yes. Whoops. Almost flew off the mic in excitement. I got my hoodie. It's really good quality. Awesome. Janos, thanks. Yeah. I'm so glad you like it. Thanks for your support on that. Janos is also a Patreon supporter, so thanks for your support, Janos. Julio says, to be honest though, I say the IDE or text editor you use depends on the programming language you decide to learn first. Evangelo says VSCode extensions are so useful though. Yeah, they really are. The downside to the extensions though is that you have to know what you're looking for. And this is more of a gripe I have with a lot of these things, whether it's a recommendation system on YouTube or Spotify or something more relevant to coders. Like, discovery isn't like it used to be. At least with, this is the funny thing. I have never had a TV in my adult life. I've had a TV, but not, like, TV service, if that makes any sense. Not even local channels. I've never had a satellite or cable or any of that crap. Last fall, a few months ago, I finally got my little antenna so I can get these channels, like PBS, MeTV. There's some great old school stuff I watch. Oh my gosh, I'm like a TV thing. I turn on the TV now when I've got some free time. I'm like, oh my god, I'm turning into a normie. Make it stop. I'll watch like Columbo or like Planet of the Apes on Saturday night, and it's all good. But one of the things I noticed about TV is that when I'm going like this and I land on something, it's not catered to me. Like PBS shows, for example. PBS has and this is something I missed out on these last decades where I didn't have a TV. Apparently now PBS has 5 different stations. So it's like, I'll go to one of these PBS channels and there'll be a cooking show on. And it'll be a cooking show that I've never heard of. It'll be a style of cooking I've never been exposed to. And it's something I never thought I'd enjoy. Or be a documentary I'd never otherwise be recommended on YouTube. And I think that is something, that spontaneity and that true discovery is missing in the modern web. It's missing with the algorithms, and it's missing in these dadgum IDEs when we're looking for extensions. There aren't things that we have to know exactly what we're looking for in order to find an extension. Like, for example, would anyone know Emmet exists if they didn't know the word Emmet? Or if they didn't know how would you even know that something like this exists without knowing about it previously? Do you know what I mean? There's not like, I guess what I'm saying is I wish there were more opportunities, or like okay, I'm kind of a gamer. I just dropped a bomb on the RTC channel. I never talk about this. But I like D&D type games, or like action adventure games. And you go on these quests and you stop by the merchant. And the merchant has things that you would never ever think of. Like, oh my gosh, it's a poison arrow that shoots deadly orange juice into a satchel of magic fairy dust that explodes in the enemy's face and kills them for 25 XP. Like, I had no idea that existed. Like, what if we had merchants with these IDEs where you could stop and browse like bundles for newbies, which would come with Emmet, a terminal, and like syntax highlighting or something, and like 2 different themes. What if we had these merchants, or just something to make the navigation process a little more easier? Because right now, all these freaking packages, 80% of them I do not use because I was in a hurry and I had a selection. So highlight selection. I will tell you, for syntax highlighting, if that's even what that was, but if you searched for an add-on like Beautify that beautifies your code, you'll find 20 or 30 of them. Because this is open source, anybody can contribute anything they want as long as it passes some checks and balances. How do you know which one to pick? What I'm saying is, I don't think there's enough guidance, and I'm not necessarily saying there should be. I'm just noting. I don't think there's a lot of guidance for newbies when it comes to adding the appropriate packages, customizing your IDE to your specific situation as a code newbie, and even later on. I wish the discovery process was a little more organic and a little more exciting, to be honest, because it's just like a vomit of extensions. It's just too much. And that's why I like something like PhpStorm. PhpStorm does have extensions. I've never needed to even use them. But that's a side tangent. Stone B says, that's why it's important to not code in a vacuum. You need to be part of the community and learn the tricks. That's a great point, too. That's an excellent point. That is an excellent point, Stone B. Was it Stone B who said that? Yes. Don't code in a vacuum, because you're going to have the problems of looking at all this stuff and being like, ooh, what do I pick? When you collaborate with people, especially your peers, you can problem solve together, and you can also look up to people who are a little more advanced in certain things, and they can find inspiration in what you do. You probably picked up a few hacks, a few tricks, navigating through these things, and that communication really helps. No matter if you're on Discord, whether it's a virtual meetup or something in person, you're gonna meet people who have some insight, with some good tools, with some good IDEs, with some good workflows, and so on. Thanks for adding that. Good comment. Mainstream Studio says, is my YouTube drunk? It's saying streamed April 20th. Am I in the future? I don't know. Danielle says, I loved watching Murder, She Wrote with my grandma back in the day. Oh my gosh, it's almost like a rite of passage for people, and especially for younger girls when they were with their grandmas. If you went to your grandparents' house on an afternoon or evening, there was going to be Murder, She Wrote on one way or another. on one TV or two, depending how the granny rolls. It's on at least one TV though. Let's see the comments. Paul, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a while. Nice of you to drop in. Coding in a vacuum will get you really dusty and linty too. Yes, it's true. You must delintify. You must delintify yourself if you code in a vacuum. That is such a topic we could talk about in another live stream, about just how to get into a community, especially if you're an introvert or shy, which is something we talk about quite a bit on this channel because so many of us are shy. I totally get it. But as people have been mentioning in the chat, coding in a vacuum will make you dusty, as Paul said. And as, what was it, Stone B mentioned, just getting out there, you're going to see some different perspectives and see how other people do things and learn from them. That we were talking about this yesterday with Donovan about the community, the software development community. Yeah, I like to joke about these cowboy coders who don't believe in syntax highlighting. It's funny. It's funny. But more importantly, there are even more people here who want to help. People who've been in the industry 5, 10, 15 years, people like Donovan who are continuously volunteering their time and showing people the possibilities with code. People doing mentorships, taking on mentees. It's awesome. I love it. I love the giving nature of so many people I've met in this career field. And there are some places, there are some careers where you don't find that, where the older people do eat their young and they're just like, sorry, I'm not telling you how to do this. But I usually don't find that here in this career field. It's great to see. Developers. If you're just joining us, today we're talking about best code editors for newbies. We recently ran a poll on RealToughCandy, the YouTube channel, where 800 people responded. What is the best code editor for newbies? Sublime was 10%, VSCode 77%, Atom 5%, Brackets 4%, 3% said something else. Also on Twitter, kind of mirroring, we got a few more votes for Sublime and Atom, a few less percentage points for VSCode, but VSCode is the clear winner here amongst the voting populace. Brackets at 4.6. We've talked about PhpStorm and JetBrains, Brackets, Atom, VSCode, Sublime. We took a little tour of Vim, talking about the differences between code editors and IDEs. That's an important distinction, in my opinion. And actually, if you're interested, this might be a good link to check out. This is actually on the Atom, support page, documentation page. What's the difference between an IDE and an editor? I'm actually going to share this if anyone's interested. You're not going to be socially shamed if you say IDE instead of code editor. It's not that serious. But there are some distinct and very important differences between just code editing and then having an integrated development environment where you have debugging, you have testing, you have these other things that go in to making a project. Because there's a difference between coding and then working and then building a project. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to pop that link. I'm going to pop that link right in, and if you want to check that out, I think it does a pretty good job of explaining it. It does say virtually all IDEs are tied specifically to a language or framework. That I don't know if that's changed. I don't know if that's as true today as it was in 2016. I know a few of these IDEs are pretty liberal and forgiving when it comes to languages and frameworks. But for the most part, like this person is listing like Visual Studio, clearly for .NET, RubyMine, IntelliJ for Java, etc. So yeah, but either way, it's a pretty good definition. Sammy says, regarding being shy, introverted, or asocial coders, my thirst for information is overcoming my social reticence. How do you say that word anyway? Reticence? I've heard my dad say it to me, but I've never used it. Quickly. Yeah. What do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention. Invention is the mother of a necessity. Socialization is the mother of needing a problem solved. I have no idea what they say, but great comment. It's true. It's true. When you need something, exactly, you know, when you need something, everything becomes relative. Like, oh, I'm shy, but I need help solving my React problem, so maybe I'll ask this person. And then you work through it. It's really cool to see. And getting that positive feedback, going back to that positive feedback thing, when you do ask someone, you're feeling shy, but you do get that courage to ask somebody, and they give you a really legit answer, a really solid answer. That is another just one of those small but significant pieces in getting positive feedback, so you can continue on with your coding journey. I mean, how many of us have been in high school, grade school, or college where we had a teacher who blew us off or said something really rude or was just really condescending? That just really disappointed me. As someone who loves learning, having that teacher not care, where I was in the student seat and I cared so much, and them just blowing me off when I had a question or something, it just like, I didn't like chemistry as much as I could have or wanted to. And those people in those positions, I don't know why they keep teaching when they're so miserable. Like, that is one of the, like, aside from healthcare, if you don't like teaching, please stop. Bump your tenure, dude. Just get out. Just take an early retirement. Please stop teaching. Uh, that's a side rant. Monokuma Blessed, good to see you popping in. Let's see what else John B says. As a new coder, try them out because establishing your tools early helps you be productive in the long run. Do not be afraid to try these tools out. Yeah, precisely. You know, and this is the thing too, whether it's VS Code. Now I'm in the minority here. I don't care for VS Code. I just don't care for it. I don't use it all that much. It's just not me. It's just not me. What the languages I use, the projects I work on, the options I need, and the workflow, VS Code doesn't fulfill those needs. So I don't use it all that often. But it's free, so try it. You know, and even though it's not my number one selection, I wouldn't say, okay, drop everything and go try VS Code. I certainly am not going to say don't try it. You know what I mean? See which one clicks with you. I think that's really good advice too. This is the thing about being a developer. There is not a one-stop shop for anything. For education, for having a job, for a job board, all the stuff. There's never just one solution. There's always just a melange of resources available, and all these, even frickin' dude, Vim. Try it. If you're, like I said, if you're on Linux or if you're on Mac, just fire up your terminal and type in Vim or Vi and see what all the commotion is about. It's actually it's pretty fun. Practically speaking, in my humble opinion, for the average common project, the average developer, it's not applicable. But try it. Great comment, John. Thanks for adding that. GTD says VSC is too electronic, webby feeling. Paul says, yeah, I'm in the majority. VSC is pretty darn cool. See, this is what maybe someone can add to this, because I started with Atom, and I like Atom just fine. This is another one I do use, not as regularly as PhpStorm or Sublime, but I do find myself once every couple weeks, I suppose, so somewhat regularly, I guess. What is the difference between VS Code and Atom? Now, I do know a lot of people have dumped Atom because they said it was slow. I never had that problem, so I never needed to dump Atom for VS Code. And when I started using VS Code and experimenting with it, I'm like, this is just like Atom, but with more packages pre-installed. So I'm not sure. I'm genuinely curious. Like, what is the big sell with VS Code? For those of you who have used Atom in the past, what is the big sell with VS Code? Let me know in the comments, because I am genuinely curious, and I'm always, like I said at the beginning of this stream, I'm always curious about my subscribers and what everyone's up to, because there's no sense in me just like, trumpeting my personal preferences when it comes to an IDE. Like, it's not that important about what I use on a daily basis. The more important thing is sharing my findings with other developers in different phases in their career. GTD says, I've never used Atom. Stoneby says you can really hack Atom as it is completely open source. This is the interesting thing too, okay? So Atom is a product of GitHub. That is correct, right? It's been a while. I do believe Atom was developed by a team at GitHub, and VS Code obviously developed by the folks at Microsoft. Now go back and think. Atom, think about this. This is interesting. Atom was developed a few years ago before Microsoft acquired GitHub. And now Microsoft technically is responsible for Atom and also responsible for VS Code. I honestly, my conspiratorial cogs are twirling and swirling right now, and thinking that Atom, this might have been some sort of planned obsolescence. Because I just don't see the big differences. Atom can be an IDE. You can add that extensibility, and I've used it as an IDE before. You can use it as a code editor too. But it has that, I mean, I don't know. Developers, let me see. GTD says, I think VSC had Microsoft behind it. Yeah, and first-class support for TypeScript, which, if I remember correctly, was more marketable than lots of others. Randy Miller, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. All the extension activity and all the tutorials that use VSC. Sammy says VSC is open source. There's even a Linux version with the Microsoft telemetry ripped out, all built on Electron.js. So yeah, developers, I don't know. I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. It's 5:30 Central Time in the great Midwest, where fearless developers are born and raised every day. Wherever you are in the world, I want to thank you for tuning in. We are doing a lot of live streaming. We're doing some interviews. We're going to be having some guy coming on the channel. Hopefully it's not completely set in stone, but he's going to be talking with us about DevOps. He's working in DevOps. I actually still need to contact him, if I was going to be totally honest, but I put my feelers out and he said he was interested. So as far as getting the details hammered out, I still need to contact him on that. But hell or high water, we're going to have a DevOps person on here telling us about what the heck is DevOps? What is it? So that's going to be a fun one. So many more topics. It's all good. So developers, I thank you for tuning in. Thanks for participating in this poll. 800 votes. That's crazy. On YouTube, best code editor for newbies, 77%. The overwhelming majority saying VS Code is where it's at, baby. Yup. And then on Twitter too. As always, if you want to continue the conversation, check out the RTC Discord. We have a blast there. It's so fun. I'm checking in throughout the day, seeing what's going on with you guys, and yeah, doing what we do, software development. Have a great night, great day, great rest of today, tomorrow, and I will see you in the next live stream. Peace out.